this will surely be a verdict that will be looked into very closely. Even as we speak, the Karnataka High Court has now just taken up the matter. They are reading out the hijab verdict. In fact, the High Court, they're saying that we have questions after holistic view. Remember, a 3-judge panel had very keenly heard the entire argument coming in from the Karnataka government as well as those petitioners in detail. For at least 2 weeks, the hearing went on where arguments were heard. This was entirely a debate on the right to religion versus campus discipline. In fact, this was the debate that went on for 2 weeks now, and now the High Court saying that we have questions after holistic view. The Karnataka High Court now just taken up the hearing, the verdict. In fact, they are going to be pronouncing the verdict in just moments from now. But here's the question number 1. Here, the Karnataka High Court there, while it reads out the verdict, the court asking, is hijab an essential part of Islam? Here's the court saying that we have questions after holistic view. And question number 1, which the High Court asks here, is hijab an essential practice in Islam? And then you have questions coming in from the High Court where the court asks, is uniformity? In fact, let me revisit the first question. If hijab is essential part of Islam, this is a question that's being asked by court. Is uniform okay as per rights? Now, this is the High Court now, as it reads the verdict, is coming out with some of those questions that they are, of course, trying to contemplate some answers to. Here is the Karnataka High Court that really heard the case for close to 2 weeks. It is a very complex case, undoubtedly. Question number 1, which the Karnataka High Court asks, is hijab an essential part of Islam? Is it an essential practice? This is the debate that has boiled down to whether hijab is an essential practice in Islam or not. And these are questions which the High Court is asking even before it pronounced its verdict. Was the government Feb 5th order, in fact, let me revisit that question here. We're looking at the hijab verdict that is going to be pronounced in just moments from now. But here are the questions that the court is asking even before the verdict is out. Nolan Pinto is joining us. He's tracking the court's developments there. Nolan, please give us an insight into these questions that the High Court is asking currently on hijab being an essential practice or not. These are just questions that are being announced while the court readies to give out its verdict in just moments from now. These are really important questions where the debate really boiled down to whether or not hijab is an essential practice in Islam or not. Many of those petitioners insisted that this is an essential practice, while the state government of Karnataka denied this is an essential practice. Now you have the court there all set to pronounce its verdict. Please take us through what the court is hearing.
Well, in fact, Nabila, before everything started, the High Court stated that they are taking a holistic view of the entire matter and hence have formulated a few questions and have answered them accordingly. I'm going to go one by one.
You have the High Court that just says that hijab is not an essential practice of Islam. Could you elaborate a little bit? With the High Court now saying that hijab is not an essential practice in Islam. This is precisely what we hear the court has said. Please elaborate.
Well, in fact, Nabila, it will be difficult to actually elaborate on that at the moment because this is what they have been focusing on. There are 4 important questions, and then I think we'll be able to actually understand what they are trying to say. First question is whether hijab is an essential part of the Islamic faith protected under Article 25. Second one is whether prescription of school uniform is violative of rights. The third question is whether the government order of February 5, apart from being incompetent and manifest arbitrary, violates Article 14 and 15. Now, in fact, the High Court has answered all of them. To the first question, whether hijab is an essential part of Islam, it says does not form part of essential religious practice. On the second question was whether...
Right, stay with us, Nolan. I'm going to quickly go across to Anisha Mathur. She's been tracking the court developments. Anisha, the Karnataka High Court says hijab is not an essential practice in Islam and also says that students cannot object to uniformity. Elaborate to us what exactly the court is reading out.
Well, the court has just read out the operative part of its order. The Chief Justice bench has said that they formulated 4 specific questions: whether wearing of hijab is part of religious practice, whether prescription of school uniform is a violation of fundamental rights, whether the government order of February in which they had said that we have prescribed the uniform under consideration of public order, whether that order is correct or not, and whether there could be any disciplinary inquiry against the officials who were implementing this entire situation. The court has answered in a negative to all of them. Remember, the court has said that hijab is not an essential practice, that uniform is a part of the authority of the schools, that the students cannot object to uniform being prescribed. In addition, they have also said that there is no call for the court's interference or disciplinary proceedings against the officials of the school, and that the students will have to follow the uniform that has been prescribed by the school and colleges. This is a very, very big development, but this is the only a small part of the verdict has been read out in the open court. We'll have to wait and see the entire judgment, whether what other observations have been made. But for now, it is very clear that the court has said students cannot object to uniform and that hijab is not a part of essential practice of religion.
Right, Kanisha, this is a massive development coming in from court as the Karnataka High Court pronounces its verdict. It upholds the Karnataka government's order for uniformity. 5th of Feb, a fresh order was given out by the Karnataka government that said that uniformity must be maintained, no religious symbols must be allowed inside educational institutions. It seemed like the Karnataka High Court has upheld the Karnataka government's fresh Feb 5th order and now says that hijab is not an essential practice in Islam. This is almost worded by the Karnataka High Court as it pronounced its verdict. What more has the High Court said while observing this matter? It says that hijab is not an essential part of Islam and also says that students cannot object to uniformity. Anisha, we saw large deliberations and debate on what is uniformity. Many of those petitioners saying there in court that they are not objecting to uniforms. They only want to add a piece of cloth over that uniform which coordinates with the color of their uniform. But here the court very clearly saying that students cannot object to uniformity, which almost means that the CDC guidelines framing a definition around uniformity, which means no hijab, no saffron shawl or no religious symbols will be allowed, is what is ideally being upheld by court entirely.
Well, yes, Nabila, the court has very clearly said, and I'm quoting this here, prescription of school uniform is a reasonable restriction and therefore students cannot object to the uniform. So when the court is saying this very, very clearly, that the prescription of your uniform is a reasonable restriction, it is recognizing that the students have raised the argument that their fundamental rights being affected, but the court saying that the state under reasonable restrictions can make this kind of a uniform, that the colleges, the government college did have the right to prescribe a uniform, and no religious, if the college is saying that no religious symbol can be worn to the school or college, then the students cannot object to do so. So very clearly the court has come down in favor of the government of Karnataka and the colleges that were prescribing the kind of uniform.
Right.
But as I said, we'll have to wait.
It almost instills faith in the CDC guidelines and the government's vision when it comes to uniformity. The government's definition when it comes to uniformity is now entirely being upheld by the Karnataka High Court. A massive setback for all those pro-hijab petitioners who hoped that they would be allowed inside classrooms with the hijab. Now this Karnataka High Court leaves them looking for options legally. We're looking at the Karnataka High Court now observing that hijab is not an essential part of Islam. This is a massive verdict that's been pronounced by the Karnataka High Court. In fact, that's just the beginning of their verdict being pronounced. There's a lot more that's currently being spoken.